everybody, this is Bill Varney with your Saltwater Guide Surf Fishing Report for Thursday, October 24th. Well, let's start up north in Santa Barbara. We'll work our way to San Diego. Up in Santa Barbara, the water remains somewhat dirty, and not from the trash sense as much as there's been a bit of turnover up there, but more importantly, there's a lot of eelgrass and kelp in the water. But that has not slowed down fishing. There's been a squid run all the way from the wharf all the way up to Hope Ranch, and that has really turned on some really good halibut fishing, with a number of fish this week coming in between 24 and 36 inches up there. Some of the most successful baits have been 6-inch swim baits, 6-inch flukes, all in white. White has really been the color. And then of course there's been some decent perch fishing up there. Most of that's been on live bait in addition to grubs and so forth. So as we make our way down to Ventura, Ventura remains good too. There has been some nice sized Corbina this week caught there. There's been a couple of stripers caught there. And then perch fishing continues to be good in the Ventura area. And really many of the same baits have been working. I think for the stripers, some of the better fish have been caught on some big spoons, some 3/4, 1 ounce, 1 1/4 ounce crocodiles and Castmasters. Even I've heard some mega baits being used too. Those can be cast way offshore, and then that just bright sparkling color with so many striper in the water now, they've been really hungry. So that Ventura area remains to be good anywhere from C Street all the way down to the Santa Clara River mouth. So that whole zone has really been good over the last week as this water temperature stays moderated, which is great. As we make our way down the coast to Malibu, Malibu was really fantastic this last week, and mostly because of these incredible weather condition that we had. We talked about that last week about the Santa Ana setting up, which it did. It not only made the water really calm from a wind standpoint, and of course that allows the temperature to come up a little bit too, but in addition to that, the swell from the south was very small and really mitigated up in the Malibu area. So we got some great reports from there. A big Corbina, 22-inch Corbina, caught by the Malibu Pier on a sand crab, and then another one about that size, maybe a little bit bigger, caught up on Leo Carrillo. Now this is a great time of year once again for fishing those areas up there where you're trying to fish rock areas that are adjacent to shore. Remember, it's not dredged up there. You have all the natural setting up there. So when you get these tides like we've got, you've got very calm water from a wave standpoint and the wind standpoint. It really gives you a great chance to fish right up against those rocks offshore. You just have to figure out the tide. Is it best to fish that rock at a medium tide, a high tide, or a low tide, depending on how far it is offshore. Spot fin and perch fishing and calico bass fishing has also been good in that Malibu area at La Piedra and La Matador, those two beaches right before you get to Leo Carrillo. Kind of that whole zone in there has been really good. So Malibu continues to be good, and we know that Malibu will be good over the winter too, as we really see these southern swells dissipate in November. It'll be very calm up there, give you a really good chance. Not only for the, the spot fin and the yellowfin and everything else that's up there, even some white sea bass up there, but in particular for those calico perch, which is one of the only areas along the coast where you'll find those. And then from there we make our way down to the South Bay. The South Bay continues once again to be good because of this moderated water. The swell is very small in the South Bay, just a little bit of a wind swell in there. And of course the water's been very calm. I think we're going to see a change over the weekend with a little bit of wind coming up, but in general been very good there. And Corbina fishing continues to be probably the best there of any of the beaches in Southern California. And really the trick up there has been anglers have been going underneath the piers at high tide and getting sand crabs, looking at the tide chart, figure out when high tide is, getting under there and getting sand crabs, and then taking those crabs, trying to find some soft shells or some medium shells, taking those crabs back onto the sand anywhere along the beach there. Hermosa, Manhattan, Redondo has been good, and all the way down to Rat Beach and Palos Verdes there's been Corbina along that whole strip, and they've been using some sand crabs for those. And then there's also been some yellowfin, croaker, and perch. All of those can be caught on the sand crabs, but they're really effective also fishing grubs this time of year and some of the other natural baits. So the South Bay really continues to be good, and there's been some good halibut fishing really along the entire coast, I would say, from the Mexican border to Santa Barbara, as these fish get ready for their spawn and come in close, and certainly following in any of that squid that comes in now that the squid, of course, has replaced all the grunion. So the fishing has been good for them, but if you're going to be in the South Bay and you're halibut fishing, concentrate on areas that are adjacent to structure. So King Harbor, maybe over in Hermosa around First Street, right along the edge of where the jetty goes out, over on the Redondo side, Sapphire Street, jetty, Topaz jetty, jetties at Dockweiler, harbor entrances, around the pier pilings like Hermosa and Manhattan Pier. All of those areas where you're fishing the edge adjacent to structure is where you're going to find those halibut this time of year. So once again, South Bay continues to be good, and there's been a lot of perch in that area, but they've all been really small, you know, like those 8-inch perch. So they're a lot of fun to catch, but we haven't really seen any big ones in the South Bay yet, as they're not beginning to spawn yet. And then we make our way down to Orange County. Once again, that zone between Newport Harbor and Huntington Harbor has been really quite good. Spotfin, yellowfin, croaker, perch, they're all in their area. We've seen some nice big leopard sharks come out of there, and a couple of stripers last week came out of there that were over 30 inches, those 30+ inch stripers. And guys are fishing, once again, those heavier spoons for them, the Battlestar and the Lucky Craft lures for those stripers. And don't forget, you know, those stripers, they love to feed at night on full moon periods. We're past that now, but when the next full moon comes up, keep that in mind. If you're going to fish at night, the open beach is a good spot, and also areas where there's structure again, those stripers are going to be looking for food. So they have been really good over the past couple weeks as they fed under that full moon, and I think we're going to see them come back next month, in exactly the same way. And then last but not least, we'll make our way down to San Diego. The water has been particularly dirty once again in San Diego, and once again, I'm not talking about trash and things like that, but in their area in particular, a ton of eelgrass everywhere. Some kelp, but just eelgrass like crazy. So here's a couple of tips on that. And this is what you want to do up and down the coast when you come to areas that have a lot of kelp or eelgrass in the water. First of all, if you can get up on a cliff area and you can look down on the water, you can sometimes see the areas where the kelp is concentrated and then areas adjacent to it that are not as kelpy or maybe no kelp at all. Find those areas, line them up with the cliff or something near the cliff, and then go down there and set yourself up on the beach and fish that area. The other tip, and this works in Santa Barbara all the way to the Mexican border, is if there's a lot of kelp in the water, a good time to fish is about 1 to 2 hours after low tide. So most of that stuff is on the beach behind you and then up until high tide. So as each progressive wave comes in from that low to high tide, fish will come in with it to feed, but most of that kelp will still be on the beach till you get up to that high tide period. Then all that stuff will be in the water and it'll be time to get out of there. So in San Diego, although we don't have a lot of coverage right down there right now because of the conditions, I think, and of course we've got a lot of people back to school, a lot of people back to work. We don't have as much coverage as we would normally have. There has been some yellowfin croaker down there and some decent perch fishing, and I know all of that will improve because we've really got this good water quality from a standpoint of the temperature, and I really don't see that temperature changing too much over the next month or so. So that's your surf fishing report from your saltwater guide for Thursday, October 4th, and I'll see you on the beach. Thank you for watching our surf fishing report. To learn more about surf fishing, go to yoursaltwaterguide.com, where you'll find videos, dozens of articles, and our weekly surf fishing game plan to help make you a better angler on the beach. Once again, yoursaltwaterguide.com. Thank you so much for watching.